actually at the spot where I found that dead buck. You can see where he's bedding right there. But let's go in here. I have not been in here since spring. Totally unrehearsed. Let's see what we find. I don't know if it's going to still be used. I know the buck that was using it last year is dead. Matter of fact, there he is. Here's the rest of him. I moved him out of the bed. There's his rack. Not a bad little deer. Looks like about a 2.5-year-old. If he'd have had a couple more years, he'd have been really good. But anyway, he got hit by a hunter or a car. And right here's where he was bedding. Trying to look around. You can see some of the old rubs and stuff. This don't look like it's been used as much this year. But I know they're still bedding in this area. But unfortunately, this bed looks like it might have went dead. I'll have to wait and see. There's some more bones right here where I found him. I will tell you this, I found all kinds of rubs and scrapes already in this area, so I'm not abandoning this area by any means. What I like about this area, my stand, the dead buck stand is actually up here. The wind blows back this way. Now keep in mind with what I'm always talking about morning, I love hunting mornings. It's no secret. The key to hunting morning beds is you got to factor in the wind. This buck here, I can tell because the opening's up here in the wheat field. He's going to bed here when the wind is coming back this way. You got a little opening and then you got a big creek over there, and I'll show you that in a little bit, with a lot of water in it. He can see all the way to the creek, so he can guard this with his eyes while he's laying right here in this bed facing that way. The wind coming over his back, telling him if anything's coming up this way. He can look right up through here towards the horse trail and see if anything's coming that way, which is where the predominant foot traffic's from. This is a great spot. Now hang on a minute, I'm going to pause this and I'm going to walk over here and I'm going to show you this buck's J-hook so that you understand what I'm talking about, the first available cover. Okay, here we go. There's your buck bed right there. Here's his entry trail. You can tell this by how worn this is. It's his entry trail because it's going back into the woods. His exit trail, he gets up and walks right out. All right, irregardless of the wind. But morning time, he's always going to pay attention to the wind coming in here. So you can see, this is the end of the J-hook. Let's follow this around. I mean, it becomes pretty obvious, folks. You got to get out in the woods and you got to look at this stuff. I can see it right now. Now keep in mind, the wind blowing from his bed, which is right over here, is blowing back like this 90% of the time. Okay, so he's walking right here. Look at this. There's the creek. There's the big creek right there. Look at this faint trail. And that's what I keep trying to tell people. You've got to look for these faint trails. And you notice I'm not finding a bunch of rubs and stuff in this area. I'm now about 50 yards from his bed. This is getting really thick. Look at this. I mean, this is becoming so obvious. Now you think a buck wouldn't travel through this stuff, but you're wrong. Look at that, it's open right there. The bed's right over behind that open spot. He's coming through this, and I assure you, during 90% of the year, this is thick with blackberries and all kinds of stuff. But he's obviously coming right, I mean, I can see the trail so easily. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but he's walking right through here. Now look right there. I don't know if you can see that. There's the creek, right here. Look how, there's a very steep drop off. Nothing's coming through there without him knowing about it. And I'm not going to continue to follow this, but you can kind of see where he goes right through this thick stuff. This is the J-hook, folks. This is what you have to set up on. Now what I'm going to do with this buck, since I know his morning J-hook is right as I'm walking right now, that the wind is coming right across this trail, and he's able to scent check that trail from right here. I'm going to be looking for a place to set up right in here. I see one little tree right there, but I see another tree right there. I see a huge tree right there that I could set up in. Because it's, I mean, we follow it, and he's going right here. And I'm thinking about access all the time. How am I going to get into this spot? Well, look at that. You know what? That big tree, if you could put a stand up in that, or even that tree right back there, the creek's right there. It's a matter of wading through that creek, which is about 3 foot deep, popping over the top, setting up. That buck is not going to have a clue that you're in this area if you do this smartly. I mean, he has no reason to walk that edge of that creek right there in that thick stuff. Okay? I really like it when you get thick stuff like that. Boy, if there was a tree right behind that, he's not going to walk through that stuff. You pop up over the bank, you set up, you clear your shooting lanes where you have a shot 15 yards, all right? To that big tree right now I'm standing, it's about 25. No, it's about 20 yards. So I see another tree right there that you could set up in that would definitely give you a crosswind situation. But here's the danger with that. I can see where sometimes deer just randomly walk through these woods through here. If you're set up here, you potentially could get busted by another deer that walks through any of this stuff here, because you'd have to walk to that tree. So I'm really leaning towards over here somewhere. That's a huge tree. It'd be really tough to get a stand up in. You know, I'm probably going to have to go up in one of these smaller trees, like that one right there, and not get up real high, and just rely on good camouflage and not a lot of movement. You can see where he's coming through. Here's the open trail. I mean, this is open. If you set up for this, you got a good chance of getting busted. When you find that faint trail and walk through that, and set up downwind of that, you got a good chance of busting him. I wouldn't set up on this. You know, if this is what you have coming into a bed, then I would say go further downwind. All right, the bed's right. It's right up in here somewhere. I think it's right over there. But it's only about 40 yards away, 45 yards. There's probably another bed. He probably beds sometimes right up in there. I don't know if you can see that brush pile. But you got this open area. And he might come through, and you know what? I can still hit this open area from my stand selection. But if I was to, let's say I set up in that tree right there, which is probably the best tree in the woods as far as straightness, that or that one. But if he was to come and J-hook like I think he's going to at some point walk across your entry trail, and he's going to be alerted, and it kind of blows the gig. So I look for the thickest cover I can downwind of the bed and set up about 10 to 15 yards downwind of that, okay? And you can kind of see, this is where he's going to start his J-hook back into the bed, so anything over here is also in play, because the wind's going to be blowing your scent back towards the creek. And the creek's not 20 yards from me right here. This is an ideal setup for a morning hunt. I'm going to pause it again. We'll go look at that creek. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's your creek, and I'm telling you, that gets 3 or 4 foot deep, maybe 5 or 6 foot deep in some places. There went a wood duck. I don't know if I got that on video. But here's the thing about this spot. You're going to have to come in with chest waders. You don't want to go up in here, because that's doe bedding. Okay? And there's other spots to hunt over there. But if you want to hunt this stand where they're going into the wheat field, what I'm going to do, the parking spot is about 3/4 of a mile down that way. I am going to don chest waders, walk through this creek, and let me tell you, in the morning, it's not fun. I've had moccasins swim by me. Sometimes the brush gets piled up in here. It is a little work, so I come in 2 hours before daylight, and I'll wear my chest waders. I see a snake or something swimming right now, and it's December. Anyway, I would walk up into here. It's not going to be easy getting up this bank, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a rope, a waterproof rope, and hang it off the edge so I have a way of grabbing hold and helping myself up here. I might even take a shovel and dig footholes. But I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to walk right there to my tree. 12 yards. Now, This is pretty thick in here. There's no food in here. There's no reason for that buck to come up in this area. He's not crossing the creek here. The odds of him walking across your scent trail here are very slim. So for those who think you can't hunt a morning spot without ruining it, you know, I disagree. I've killed too many bucks in the morning. And my experience is, if you blow a morning hunt, it's because you haven't thought out or you haven't set up in a spot that you can get into. There's no doubt in my mind, heck, I'm going to research next year. If the water's up this high, I'm going to put in at the creek with my kayak. I will paddle my kayak right to here, climb up the bank, and be in my stand. And the only part of this I've touched is through a part that he's not walking through 12 yards. He's probably not going to be busting me. Alright, this is J-hook hunting. This is morning bed hunting. Don't let anyone tell you you can't hunt big bucks in the morning. You can. It's more precise. Big bucks pay attention to the wind always in the morning when they're approaching their bed. They don't get lazy about it. They're always going to circle downwind, and over time you're going to be able to pattern. There's just certain bedding areas that they're going to use with certain winds. I know for a fact he's not going to use this bedding area if the wind's coming out of the northwest. He's just not going to do it. So when I have a southeast wind, I'm either going to set up on that. Really what I'm really thinking about doing, since I'm a saddle hunter, I'm really thinking about setting up in this little tree right here, which is 8 yards from me, and not getting up real high. I will have about a 15-yard shot to where he's at, and there's enough cover and thickness in here he's not going to spot me. I'll have to think about this, you know. I might even put up in a ladder stand. But definitely going to hunt this next year, all right? But anyway, I hope this helps you out. I'm going to try to point out and find more of these J-hook situations and how I set up for a morning hunt. Not that I have this figured out, because I don't. I get busted just as much as anyone else. But you have to think about setting up on a buck. You can't just find the best sign and say, I'm going to hunt this in the morning and think you're going to be successful. This is an older buck that wants to stay alive, and because of that, he's going to use precautions. I hear the farmer back up here feeding his cows. So you just have to think about it. He relies on his eyes and his nose primarily, and even his ears, but mainly his eyes and his nose to get into his bed. And so he's going to play that wind in the morning. So think about it. Let me know what you think about the video, and I'll try to bring more of these as we go.